Being a DM with a constant game is the closest I personally will ever feel to being a hot girl. You know, just being like in demand. You know,
if you're willing to run a table, you're in demand.
Yeah. People just want me for my table, and I'm okay with that. Honest to God, that's true though. I can't count the number of times that in passing I've mentioned like, oh yeah, you know, I DM a game and blah blah blah. Like within 2 minutes, I'm talking 120 seconds. They'll be like, so you got any room at that table? Huh?
All right, boom. Railroading versus hand carting versus off-roading. That is the D&D topic we have that we're talking about.
Yeah. I like it.
Let's just define these terms so people know. We'll go one by one.
Well, I mean, we're in the office. I think we'll do this in a scholarly fashion. Personally, railroading to me is the DM not allowing the players to kind of go off course, right? The DM has probably written something that's way too specific and requires people being in too many like exacting places at exacting times. And he just or she just like puts them there, sometimes with a hand wave. Like sometimes it's like literally like the screen goes dark and they're like, and now you're in the magic shop. And they're like, what the fuck? Like any player that's like deep into role playing, like, oh god, oh what the fuck just happened to us, you know? And DM's like, no, it's cool, it's cool.
I just blacked out. Where are my pants?
Yeah, exactly. Oh my, I don't feel good. But yeah, so that's railroading, right? When the players aren't really in control of their destiny, and everyone hates it, and probably for good reason, right?
I don't know, like. There's times when I think railroading can be fun, but it has to be something that you're ready for. Again, with that session 0, we talked about a billion times.
Are you saying we're getting off railroading with consent? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. I think
always
all of this.
Always confirm consent before you railroad.
What if it's one of those wine sampling railroad tours? Well, you know. A wine sampling D&D. There's no monster. It's just you go and you meet a couple NPCs who are very interesting.
Yeah. I want a lot of money so that I can just rent out a train, like a physical, actual, like Orient Express train, and then just have like a D&D retreat. Where like you in the viewing car, you were all just playing, right? As you go past this amazing shit and
oh my god, that would be
right.
So
and there's like
cool.
a bar car, and you're all just getting fucking trashed, and like
Dude,
they're just bringing around finger sandwiches with tiny little cucumbers on them. Oh god, wouldn't that be fun?
Speaking of railroading. Hand carting. I'm just kidding. No.
Oh man, you fucker.
I'm just kidding.
Wouldn't that be fun though? Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be incredible. Like I think the train to do any kind of like event like that. I've even done some of those like just a weekend at a hotel where there's like 40 to 100 games going on, and you can just sign up to join them, and those are super fun.
Really?
But like
think of the added class though, because you're on a very nice train, right? It's rocking back and forth.
The added class of like, I spent a lot of money for this arbitrary thing.
Why exactly did we get rid of trains in America? I guess we never really had them. I mean, we had them, but we didn't have them like they have them in like Europe. I don't know. Bobby, what were you going to say?
We could afford planes and fuel's cheap in America. Fuel was cheap. That's really the answer.
Was.
Fuel was cheap.
Was.
So we just flew everywhere because it was faster.
Bobo, what do you got?
Oh, I was just going to say, like, not only that, but also like just being able to see like in the background, like just like different areas and locations.
Wouldn't that be beautiful?
As you're passing by is just so amazing to think about. Yeah.
Yeah, except like all we could afford is like a train that just does a circle around Detroit.
Well, we would just go into the subways. We would just take the subways from like Santa Monica to like Long Beach.
Yeah. And back, just back and forth and back and forth. God.
Yeah. That could be fun too.
Yeah, I mean,
in a different way.
That's one of those things. It's like a train is like when you think about like a really nice train, that's like the lap of luxury, right? Like that's like the upper crust. That's the intelligista. But a subway, like a dingy subway, is like the exact polar opposite. There's like just gum on top of the seats and under it. There's a bag full of something that flies are just spinning around, and you're just like, I wish I wasn't here right now. But they're both trains. Okay, never mind. That's railroading. Hand carting is the thing I made up, a term I made up at least. No, you were going to say. Go ahead.
No. I was going to talk about the cross-country hand carting trip, and then I was going to go down that rabbit hole.
That's probably what we could afford. Have you ever seen those bicycles that have gotten converted to ride on railroad tracks, like decommissioned railroad tracks?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
it's like a bicycle, and it has like a third wheel, kind of like a pontoon. Or is that what the word is? Fucking, it reaches out to the other one. And like you can just ride, but since it's metal on metal, just like a train, you get like crazy efficiency. It seems really cool. I kind of want to do it, but like how do you find
how do you start that
railroad bicycle? Yeah, like I'm sure the internet would tell me, but I'm not Googling it. I'm sure
it's just like an adaptation of like a normal bike.
For sure.
Something niche like that could work.
Right. But there's some company out there that makes like bicycle wheel train wheels, right? Yeah. And they're probably like $500 a piece.
There is no such thing.
Yeah.
You go.
You go.
It's motherfucker, go faster. You just have that move, bitch. Get out the way.
Get out the way.
You just have it on your speakerphone.
Yeah.
Good times.
Okay. So hand carting. In my mind, this is something I made up this afternoon, mind you, as I was just like running this through my head. Hand carting, we all remember a hand cart, right? Like in all like the Shaggy and Scooby, I wanted to say novels, but they aren't novels. They were cartoon shows. Now, I would read a Mystery Inc. novel, like hardcore. Pardon me, that's a fizzy drink. Okay, hand carting is kind of like there are rails. Like there's a very, or even like a specific place to go, but it's the players themselves that are providing the propulsion, right? So that it gets like it's a little grayer in there, but like, yeah, you're keeping constraints on what's possible. Hopefully like opaquely, like it isn't really, visible where they're like, we want to go right. And you're like, yeah, there's just a rock slide over there. There's only left. You can only go left. It's more of like you sort of something comes right. Whatever, you guys get it. But it's the players are a little more free to do whatever the fuck they want without being perfectly free to do whatever they want, right? And I think every story kind of ebbs and flows through stages where you're like, okay, we kind of do have to jump through some hoops. But ideally, as the DM, you've set those goals out and sort of the logical, or at least the players have arrived at a logical way of jumping through those hoops. And then the story kind of goes through them, right? And it's their decisions that are getting them through. And then that leaves off-roading, which is like when, and I mean, I think all had sessions where it's just like, I wonder what the fuck's going to happen today. No idea. No clue. And the players are just like, all right, today we're doing this or that. Or like you try and prep for it. I've had sessions where I've tried to prep and I'm like, I'll just stop because I'm like, I don't fucking know what they're going to do. I might as well just like think big picture and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Okay. I talk too much. Go ahead. Talk. Both of you.
Well, I mean, I just want to talk about like I think there's pros and cons to each. And I think, well, let's go back to railroading. Let's talk about pros
start
and
at the
cons.
beginning.
I like railroading in certain situations. Long-form campaigns, I think it's bad. If you're planning on playing regularly, with lots of time, I think the less constraints, kind of the better, generally speaking.
I would agree.
If you've only got one night to get a one-shot done, one-shots are famously railroaded. And it's not a bad thing because you got to get it done and everyone understands you got to get through it.
One-shots are so tough. Like, because you want it to feel like a normal session, right? Like a long-form session. You want it to feel like anyone can do whatever they want, but everything in D&D takes so fucking long. You know, if someone's like, yeah, I think I'll go get my armor polished. And they're like, and you're like, yeah. So you get the armor polished and they're like, I'm not hearing an NPC talk to me. And you're like, oh, of course. Hello. I'm the armor polish. Right. And like 45 minutes later, they're like, all right, so only 6 copper for my work. Thank you. Thank you. And they're like, good. Another. And then it's like, okay, guys, go home. So yeah. It's a balance, but I think because we've talked about this, James, you and I think the way to do it so it doesn't feel so railroady is like exposition at the beginning. Like as the DM, you have to go on like a 15-minute like talk about the whole setup so that everyone is already on board when they take the reins. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, yeah, I agree. And there's ways I think you can be railroady, but make it not seem like that, especially when doing a one-shot. Like, for example, say you're going into a haunted house for a one-shot, right?
Sure.
Instead of starting outside in the town where you're like, okay, you guys got to go figure out this one-shot, you could even take it a step further where you're like in the gate and the carriage that brought you here drives off into the distance. And, you know, little things like that where you can start in the action. You know, you start in like maybe the, you know, and like you're saying,
I think
maybe
that's what I did for you guys on the that Scooby-Doo one. Well, a lot of Scooby-Doo tonight. Carnival. I think I started it with you guys just showing up at the carnival, right?
Yeah.
So that like at least to cut out a lot. Now you guys spent like 2 hours just doing all the games, but that was part of it. So and that was like a way to get fun.
I think that works. And I think you're right. Like maybe a long expositional intro that really sets the scene that takes care of all that pre-set up stuff that you would have like wandered around to find.
Well, because like I think normally at the start of almost any at least campaign but session, the players are desperate to not desperate. They fucking need it, man. They need it. No, they're just just need to know. They need to know the tone of the evening, right? Like they want to know, like, okay, like, is this a place where I can talk to NPCs, or are they just gonna give me like biting off 1-word answers, right? Like, what's the tone of this place, of this town? I mean, when you travel, like I just drove cross country. There were definitely places I got out of the car and I was like, I wonder if these people are going to be friendly, you know? And of course, they almost always are until they aren't. But you know what I mean? It's like you want to know, the players want to know. And if you can explain that before it even starts, like, yeah, this is a friendly town. And you see, you know, as you're coming in, you see that, you know, the people are waving at your car and smiling or your carriage or cart or whatever. You know, there's a farmer just fucking lobs a pumpkin at you like, it's yours. You know, like that sort of thing, I think is nice. I don't know. You got to get that tone set early.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, yeah, that's I think that's important. Like, railroading is not necessarily bad, especially when but I think that has to be. It works when you have a small campaign or something very contained, like Escape to Witch Mountain, right? It's a super railroady, like get from A to B. If you guys remember that movie from a long time ago, but like it makes for a good.
What was it?
It's like Escape to Witch Mountain.
Yeah,
it's like these two kids who were aliens or something, and they had to escape.
Go on.
I don't remember it very well, but all I remember is I was like, this is a very specific movie where it's like from start to finish, it was just like get to this mountain, right? Ready, set, go, and then they started off like already being chased.
Oh God, they're frightening little children.
Yeah. That was like
Lord! Everyone at home, Google Escape to Witch Mountain. Yeesh, they're like the children of the corn. Oh Lord!
But you know what I mean. So I think railroading has its niches, and it works well for short campaigns. I don't think it works well for long campaigns. I think people feel stifled. People start to feel a little bit like they're not in control. And I think when you're ready to just take a character and let go of them, like you're prepared to play this character and then let them go, you're in a different mindset. And so it's not so bad.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
I don't have as much.
Because like, players that bring a character to a one shot, I feel like are even like, I hope this fucker dies. You know, like they're like, and they would never be like that in like a long form. They're like, no, this is a piece of my soul that I've created here. I've trapped it in this mini, and if it dies, DM, I will kill you. All right, he dies, you
will die.
He dies, you dies.
Just a little bit.
But then like show up to a one shot, and they're like, this guy's, if he has any skin on his body by the end of this, that's too much.
Yeah.
I think we played a couple of one shots where some of the people came in and were like, I'm hoping I'm dead 10 minutes in. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. All right. How'd your week go, friend?
I brought a backup character.
Yeah. Do it
already. All right. Hand carding. I think hand carding, for me, is the style that I generally like. And sometimes I go a little too far to one side or the other, but I generally think hand carding is the best of both worlds. I think
it's really the meat and potatoes, right?
Yeah. So instead of setting like boundaries as like, hey, like you're in this haunted house and you can't get out, it's more like, hey, you're in this town. There's so much more you can do, you know, and then you
Beetlejuice
where
them.
You need.
They can leave the house, but there's sandworms out there, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so you make it so they can. It just wouldn't be smart.
Yeah.
Right? Like things like that.
The parties get good at like players are smart and they'll test the waters.
Oh no, actually. Well, but here's the thing.
Like the T-Rex
sometimes
touching the wires, trying to see if they're electric.
Having said that, some of the most fun I've ever had in sessions are when it's truly gone off the rails. Like they're like, wait a second, you know, you'll be like, oh, you crack one of the shutters open and you can see out, and just this sandworm goes like, and just spashes and down, and they're like, guys, there's sandworms out there, and you're like, good, they get it. You're like we're gonna go ride them. Yeah, exactly. And then you're like, oh no. And now your carefully planned one shot is basically, can we ride the sandworm? But can probably be just, if not more fun, right? Because then you're scrambling too, and you're like, okay, sure. Make a Paul Modib check, and you're like, ooh, Modib check, huh? Okay.
Yeah. So I think hand carding is where you give the players the hooks that they need.
Right.
But you don't. I think like you in hand carding, I think you can even throw in like 2 or 3 hooks if you've got that prepared, and see what it's the whole spaghetti scenario.
I feel like almost everything. And maybe I'm too guilty of this, but very often I'm one who's like more hooks. Not every single person that they talk to should have like something that needs solving, but like a lot of them, like if they start digging, like a lot of them at least have like something small. Like, yeah. No, my kid just got beat up at school by a real shit heel of a kid. And they'll be like, do you want us to beat up his dad? And you're like, no. Well, maybe. And it's like, no, don't do that.
There's another episode of Done.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but like those are the sorts of things, like, because here's the thing, like for me, a world, and this is why I, make that terrible example, because everyone in the real world, all they have is problems. Like, name someone that doesn't have problems, and they'll tell you how many problems they have, right? So it's like, if people really start digging, like often, because you'll have your group enter into like what I like to think of as sort of like fishing mode, when they're like going around, they're like, all right, what's the next hook? I know there's a hook around here. If they start digging, I feel like everyone has something that if 6 strangers came up to me in a bar and were like, so what do you do? I'd be like, oh, I do this and that. And they're like, yeah, but what's wrong in your life? I'm like, but that's very, very personal. And they're like, don't worry, we solve problems. I would probably tell them. I'd be like, yeah, I just need $1 million. And they'll be like, we'll get it for you. You've got trustworthy eyes.
Like, I feel like that's me personally as a player. That's my worst nightmare. There's nothing worse than playing a video game and having your quest log full. I I do every side quest in a game so that my quest log is like here.
Oh, see,
and
no.
I'm like,
yeah, but
I gotta
you
get down to
on that,
one
though.
quest, and then I gotta do the one quest in my. So if it was like save this cat, possibly.
Yeah.
Or, for example, go into the Shrooming Forest, or go on this quest to get part of this bladed guild, or go to this freaking dwarven ceremony to like try and find out more. Oh my god.
Goat night.
I don't know about you, James, but I like love when like the side quests were like really stupid or really funny, and I'd be like, yeah, hell yeah, let's do this. Like,
yeah,
because in Skyrim there's one where it's like, this dog approaches you and like talks to you, and you're like, oh, what the hell? And he gives you a quest, and I was like, I got a quest from a dog. This is amazing. I love this.
I like that. I mean, you're right. I just don't like it when there's a dog, a raccoon, and a giant piece of granite who have all given you quests in 3 different places. James, now for those of you only have time for one, and so you just have to. For those of you,
James is describing my last campaign, in which they had the option to save a cat. He was like trying to join a guild. There was a fucking prince that needed saving. There were children that had gone missing. And you guys had like 8 or 10 things going on at once, which for me as a DM, I love, because you can always have like a cat run across when they're in the middle of one. They're like, wait, is that the cat?
Well, and this is where I think the hand carding, this is a great segue, because I think the hand carding comes in. I think the DM, because one of the problems we had with that was like, everyone wanted to do a little bit of all 8 quests. And round robin them. And I think it was just really unsatisfying at times, because it was like, I don't mind that we have necessarily all these quests. Okay, that's all. I hate it.
But, he did. He hated it. He hated it. And it's only coming out now.
But if we did one at a time, like if we started like knocking them off the list, that could have been one thing. But it was just like having that many quests.
It was overwhelming.
It was like over a year. We literally spent over a year and we didn't accomplish any of them. Or we did all, and it was like...
No. You saved the kids.
Well, it was like 3 weeks where we did all of them. We finished all of them. So it was like a year
but you were tracking down like all of those things. So I know what you mean though, because it felt stagnant, right? Because what you were doing is you were slowly gathering like info on all of them, and then at the end kind of went like bop, 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 and dominoed them down. But that whole lead up time, which was like literally a year, was unfulfilling, right? Because it's like, it's just grunt work. Just grunt work. You come back, you straighten the mines.
You know. And then it sounds like there wasn't any kind of ebb and flow. And there definitely was. There was a whole bunch of
No, there was, but I know what you mean. I know what you mean, because part of D&D is being like, fucking did it, guys.
Yeah.
We saved the cat.
Thing. Yeah.
It just feels good. Mainly, I think, because real life, very often, you never get that feeling. Right? Like, even if you're at work and you're like, oh, we finished the project, guys. We closed the accounts. And they're like, what are you fucking celebrating for? Look at your desk. And there's just papers up to here. And it's like, those are all need to be closed. You get back to work. And I'm like, oh,
those are tomorrow's paper.
Yeah. He's like, it's 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Get back to your desk.
So I think if you run a hand carding or a long style campaign, setting boundaries is not a bad thing. I think it's definitely a good time. Like you can definitely set boundaries.
It's all in the execution though. It's in the execution. Because I think people don't want to feel like they're coming up against right. But just making them aware that it's like, yeah, but that would be very difficult. And so, that's sometimes what I do. I literally just be like, I mean, you can try that, but like, honest to God, you and me right now, that would be profoundly difficult. Right. And I think players actually respect that, because very often we're always like trying to like, oh, what's the DM thinking? Yeah. What did he mean? Because he crinkled his right eye just a little when he said that. Right. Like you're looking for those clues. And very often it's just plain better to be like, yeah, don't do that. Like, don't. I said there were 8 dragons behind that door. I meant it. I didn't sneeze. I didn't stutter. I said 8 dragons. 8 of them. 8. Yeah, but what if the 8 have attacked one another and now there's only 1? There's still 8. I looked. 8. You know, and it's just like, okay, maybe we shouldn't go in there. right now. Right? It's like, it gives you something to come back to when you can fuck up 8 dragons at once. But at least you're not telling them no. You're just telling them, like, you'll die. You'll die.
It's like soft railroading, you could say, right?
Well, that's why I call it hand
soft rails. Yeah, you put soft rails on it, right?
Right.
Like, you can just stick certain doom as the railroad instead of the,
Yeah, exactly.
And every once in a while, I mean, you've done that to me sometimes, and I'm like, I'm doing it anyways.
Yeah.
There was one time I remember it was like there was a guy on stairs, and I was like, I want to like Randy Savage missile kick this guy. I want to jump up the stairs and missile kick this guy.
That's what it was. It's like normally when you're on the stairs, you want to attack the person below you. It's like, yeah, go for it. He was like, no. I want to double kick him in the chest. I'm like, he's 5 steps above you. And he's like, I said, I want to double kick him in the chest.
That was like, and okay. Normally it always fails, right? Like it was double disadvantage. So I rolled 3 d20s.
Yeah.
And I think I got like a 15,
and you took the lowest one, and like
something.
Yeah. It was 6, wild.
And I was like 21. I missile kick in full plate armor. I missile kick this guy, and he goes tumbling down or up the stairs. I don't know.
He tumbles up the stairs. Like, that's what's awesome about this game, though. It's like you can be like, yeah, I guess give it a shot, but there is always that chance. And when you just have like. When you fucking defy the odds, there's nothing better. There's just nothing better than that.
It's
I swear. I forgot about that. You're muted, James.
Oh no. But it's one of those things too. It's like, I mean,
oh god, that was fun.
You got to do it as a player.
Yeah.
We've all had times where we're like, I have to do this.
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah,
I'm going to.
You apologize to everyone at the
That's not on you. That's not on you.
Right. This is me time now.
All right. Off-roading.
I was gonna ask Colin before we move on about the because you mentioned like areas you can't really go to yet because you're not at that level yet, possibly with dragons or whatever. Like, do you? Because like you have 2 options as a DM. It's like either never show them those kind of areas or show them it, but be creative about like, you try to go into the cave, but like you go in the cave and you just go right back out for some reason. It's the weirdest thing. It's magic.
See,
I don't know what's going on. Like,
No,
what do you think about that? Like, should you like, what do you choose? Like,
here's the thing. I don't think you should ever not show. Like, if there's a thing there, you should always show it to your players if they start investigating it, right? And I tend to like very low magic settings. So when you're like, you walk in and it just spits you right back out, it must be magic. To me, that's like the ultimate like, oh, that feels like a video game. That just feels like a video game and they didn't code that part, right? And I think that's what it feels like to the player too. So for me, what I would do in that situation, especially if it's like you're saying, like a corridor or a door to like some place where some dude in the bar was like, just don't head down to Thrasher Anus Alley. And you're like, don't? Of course.
Anus Alley.
Yeah. It's a mean street. It's a mean street. But so you go there and they're like, well, should we go in, right? And the wonderful thing about like DMing is like usually when your players are talking, it takes forever, right? So it gives you the chance to be like, to interject at just the right time, right? And if they're getting towards a consensus where they're like, maybe we should go in, you just have like someone just sort of like walk out from there just with like the bloody stump of a leg, like, and they're using someone else's arm as a crutch. And they're just like, don't do it. It's just a child, but it's terrible. It's terrible, right? And they refuse to answer any questions and hopefully they'll get the point. Otherwise, like they go in and then you punish them. You just punish.
Yeah.
Them. No, but you know what I mean. Like
but
that is option
the players.
That is option.
That's the players.
Correct.
That's no. But I think that's a good thing. Like you have the players testing the boundaries.
Right.
They go in, and it's like before you even see it, you feel the burning of your skin as it melts off of your bone.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, I always like to give people like a shot. It's like, hell yeah, you guys are 5 level 1s. And you want to go and fight the 8 dragons. It's like, you realize this is stupid, right? And they'll be like, no, we know. all right, let's go. And you let them go because they are in control, right? Like you are painting the backdrop and they are telling you what the heroes do. And that's what we always have to remember. So you, and the main thing is you just have to be honest. You have to be very frank sometimes because like I said, like when we're playing, we're looking to James and we're like, which is why fucking playing online hurts sometimes because there's a little bit of disconnect because you're looking at the DM and you're like, yeah, but what does he mean by that, right? Like, does he really mean it, or is he like enticing us, or is he like sometimes you just have to be fucking frank and just straight up and like, look, it's certain death to go in there. You can totally go, but like, you saw that guy that walked out. If you turn the corner, he's probably on the ground and already dead, right? Like, know that going in, and then they can make their own decisions in that sense. But that's sort of where the fun is too, though, right? Like, that's the most fun, sort of. Just being like, maybe we just go in and take a peek, right? And then you don't want to kill him. Like, you don't want to kill him, right? Just a peek. I just got to know what kind of child, baby. Fuck that guy up, right? And you try and give it just like a little ramp up if you can, and then like the hammer comes down, hopefully like nearby and not on top of them, right? And that's always the balance. That's always the balance because that's the shortcoming with DMD is like you never know what the reality is except for what you're receiving from the DM. Right. So like he can be like, yeah, it's deadly in there. And there can be 5 people at the table and deadly to them means 5 different fucking things. Like if we fuck up, it's deadly. Or if we look at Medusa, we're dead. Or if we fucking breathe the air around that corner, we're dead, or we'll only die if we roll in that once, guys. We got this. Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's deadly to a layman, but I'm a hero.
Right. Well, I'm a hero. Exactly. Which
That's
is
why
like,
with new players, it's almost like better to be super, like very blunt, like you were saying, and just kind of like warn them. But you can like, if you want to, like even make it like kind of like a thing like in game where you're like, all right, so Colin, you're a bard. You've heard a lot of stories. Not a lot of stories about people coming out of Dragon's Den alive.
Exactly.
Out there,
Exactly. And that's like a nice little lore drop, right? And it's an opportunity to flesh out, a little bit of that character too, because you could tell me about, years ago, in the Body by Zeus massage parlor. You met that guy who had just been, and told you this story, and it's one of your favorite, songs to sing now, right? And like all of a sudden you're layering in, but at the end of the day, what you're telling them is like, no one comes out alive, nobody, right? So those are sort of like the training wheels. Those are the sort of like the hand cart rails that I like to think of.
All right, off-roading.
Off-roading sounds awesome, right?
It does.
You think about a car. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You're like, baby,
awesome.
Where we're going, we don't need roads, right? Sounds fucking sweet. It is agony. It's usually agony.
Well, I think there's times, there's very specific cases, like railroading, there's very specific cases where off-roading can be a lot of fun. And like, for instance, a hex crawl. A hex crawl is a great way.
I don't know. Maybe I've never played a hex crawl that was like, that got me going. I'm more of a narrative person though. So what would define a hex crawl?
Well, a hex crawl is just where like a DM has prepared a big grid and you kind of just, and a lot of times these end up being like sandboxes when you can just be like, hey, here you go. It takes a day to move a hex of travel. Where do you guys want to go? And it gives travel like very specific guidelines. So in a way, it's very railroady, but it completely has no like, and there's no big overarching story unless there's one like really baked into the setting. But
it's kind of like get out in the wilderness, like this wild fucking west, survive, motherfucker, right? Yeah.
So I think off-roading can be really fun for those, and those work really well with people who love like the very like traditional rules and raw, rules as written kind of games where it's like, you go into this dungeon. Here's the dungeon.
The not
rules,
very RP
stuff.
heavy games, right?
Exactly,
the games where it's like we're going to be rolling nonstop and just trying to outsmart the dungeon instead of trying to navigate the princely core.
Yeah, which can be like a lot of fun, but that's the time when it works.
And it can be like, I feel like even like a high RP game needs to get down in that gritty into the trenches every once in a while too, right? Like you gotta get, I feel like you've got to get a little column A, a little column B, a little column C, and like it can be very fun, but without like structure, I don't know, man. If I don't know why the fuck I'm there, for me, I'm like, why am I risking my life right now? This place is awful.
Yeah,
this place sucks.
So like. Off-roading can be good there. I think if you have a team of people or a group like a party who has a very defined thing, like there's that one stream where it's like 6 bards. The whole party is bards. And they're just a performing group. And all they want to do is go around and like perform and become renowned, right? This party has already
that sounds
written,
like a very awesome setup, actually.
They've already have. I mean, so it's like the party is driving, so you really don't have to create any.
They are, they have the impetus. Like they know what they need to do, right? We need to become the most famous and renowned. Every action they then take should be in service of that goal, right?
Yes. And so I think if you have a party who can
leave it very open, that makes sense.
If you have very motivated players, sometimes you get very motivated players, and I think it works better if you have a motivated group goal. But you can just have a bunch of really motivated players. An off-road game can be great because you don't need to give them hooks. They build their own hooks, right? And, And that requires a little bit more communication, I think, from them to the DMs, being like, "Hey, this is what we want to do."
Right. A little more hand on head talk, right?
Yeah.
Like, and for those of you at home, whenever we play, my table has always kind of, when you have an out of character like question or like, wait, what are we always just put our hand on our head and it's stuck. Now we do it all the time back and forth. Sometimes even when we're just chatting like online, we'll be like, wait, but do we know that? And I'm like, why the fuck is my hand on my head?
I do that all the time.
All the time. I think we probably do it in public and we don't even realize. Like I'm checking out groceries and like, hey, where are the Skittles? And he's like, why is your hand on here? I'm like, I didn't ask that. I need to know where the Skittles are.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll tell you.
Off-roading works good for, you're right. Graffiti writes, we want to check out this building. Congrats, you found the dungeon. What's under this rock? Yeah. Oh, another dungeon. Very exploration heavy dungeon crawler, an off-roading campaign where you're like, I just let them do whatever the hell they want, and I just make it up as we go along. Now you have to accept, I think, that the fact that like, that's a lot harder as a DM to have like big reveals and big like right. This intrigue over here.
Yeah, like where's your intrigue if basically like just the rocks are just hiding dungeons? It's like you're like, I don't know. We just flipped over that rock and there was a dungeon on there. It was the size of a penny. How did you fit a dungeon under there? And like, I don't know, man. Magic's weird. Just get in the dungeon. Come on, get in the dungeon.
Get inside the dungeon.
Water's fine.
Loot.
We don't even have a town to spend this loot in. Doesn't matter. We need it, baby. Get in the fucking dungeon.
Yeah. So anyway,
I've actually heard some DMs just be like, I never plan. I always just do off road because it's just easier to be like, okay, what are we doing today, guys? And then
it's easier for the DM if you like.
I couldn't do that, but.
I'll often not plan. Like my DM style is I don't plan. What I do is I just think about like the wider ramifications of their current situation and what would be their future situation if they maybe did this or maybe did that. Or maybe, but very rarely do I like write up unless I know like they're like, yeah, next session we're going into that thing, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll prep a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But I tend to leave it very open, mainly because, like you said, it's like, who the fuck knows what you psychos are gonna do? Like, and then sometimes you prep a lot and they do the exact opposite and you're like, fucking no, you walk through that door and the door puts you over here now. Fuck you, it's magic. I don't know, baby. But yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough.
So I think there's merits to all three styles. I think using them in the right situations is key.
Yeah.
And then also letting your players know, again, with communication, what kind of
is this game Dungeons and Dungeons?
Letting your players know what kind of style, because I think that could go a long way too, to the players' enjoyment. Just knowing what to expect. Being like, hey guys, my first time playing D&D, this is gonna be a very railroady campaign, or my first time dungeon mastering or whatever. You know, like I'd like to try and keep it as railroady as possible, just because it's easier for me as my first time.
And I mean, and those are the things, like, no matter how like non-railroady you try to be, the first time you DM, you're gonna be a little railroady, because you're like, oh, I've got this in the book, and I thought about that, but now they want to go over to the waterfall. I didn't even know there was a waterfall until I made a mistake and said waterfall instead of cliff. You know, and then you're like, oh, the waterfall dried up. And there's a wall there. It's a waterfall, and now you have to go over here. I'm sorry.
Oh no, there's 8 dragons bathing in the waterfall.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, but those are the things you just have to learn, right? It's just like learning any other thing. It's like you're learning moves. You're learning ways to like sort of contort yourself and contort the narrative to be like, and like Mercer is great at this, because you never really feel like he's pushing people back onto a certain path, but he does. Like if you're watching for it, you're like, oh yeah. He didn't want them to really go and start exploring there, so he's kind of made a thing happen, and it still feels natural though, because if it feels natural, you're golden, because nobody is any the wiser, and they don't feel like they've been like they didn't get something, like they missed out on something, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I always think that my favorite example of that is when I went to this NASA thing, and they were like, oh, the way you'd stop a meteor from hitting
Was it Space
Earth?
Camp?
No. It was like an open. It was like a JPL open thing.
I always wanted to go to Space Camp. Bobby, you look like you might have gone to Space Camp.
No.
All right. I'll stop interrupting.
But you go to it, and they were like, oh, the way to move an asteroid off of Earth's alignment is you just send this thing up there, and it sends a single ion over and over and over again, like single,
like an ion drive.
Yeah, and you're like, what?
Yeah,
and it's just like,
right.
Over time, that trajectory, if you hit it early enough, it's going to be vast, and it's going to be
it's
like
the Voyager probe,
it's fascinating,
right? That thing has like
ion.
It has like I think it has an ion drive, and like literally it pushes with like 1,000th of a gram. But if you do that nonstop for fucking 30 years, you're just adding to the acceleration the whole time.
Yeah.
And pretty soon you're just, I mean, not pretty soon, I said 30 years, right? So the trick is catch these things early.
Yeah.
Right? Catch them early.
All right.
With players and with cancer. Catch them early.
I would like to move a little bit, and let's change the music up, and let's see what Bobby's doing in the cup. Let's see what's brewing in the cup.
It's brewing in the cup. It's brewing in the cup.
Here we go.
Bobbo.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. How you doing? How you doing down there?
Doing all right. I'm looking forward to Father's Day this weekend. I actually, my dad was like, "Hey, let's play some D&D." So I made a whole little thing for them this week.
You're gonna play with the family.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Wow.
Oh, how many players? Who you got? I mean, don't dox yourself. Don't give your home address, but or do.
My dad. So dad, mom, sister, and then my wife. So it'll be 4 players. I made little simplified little cards for them to have like little player cards. So
dude, that's smart. That's super smart. Like it's way easier to get people into it if they don't have, because sometimes looking at that player sheet the first time.
Oh
you're
my
like,
God, yeah.
what the fuck is this? Like, what the fuck is this? You know, like, no, don't worry. It's real simple. And then you slap down the PHB and like the Dungeon Master's Guide on the table, and they're like, what's that? And it's like, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that.
I was gonna say the biggest thing is like when you have a new player and you're like, okay, 1 second, you pull this out. There's like, nope, I'm out.
Fuck you. I'm gonna go drink on the porch. Yeah.
It's a character for you, and there's like, no.
Oh my God, dude. I think the biggest barrier to playing is creating a character. Creating a character without anyone's help, if you've never done it before, is like fucking learning calculus. It's bad. It's rough. Oh, that's exciting though. That's exciting. That should be fun. Yeah. You gonna railroad him? You're gonna railroad?
I am gonna roll. No, I'm not gonna. No,
I'm gonna roll over them so hard.
No, it'll just be fun. We'll just kind of like a free form little fun game in a town.
Oh, that's exciting. You have to let us know how it goes.
Yeah,
we'll do.
Yeah, dude. Oh, that's fun. Look at you. I wish I could get my family into it. My brother plays. One of my brothers plays, but the rest of my family, yeah. He DMs. He's in like 3 different games. You know, he's deep into it. So I infected one of them, but the rest don't really. They don't have the bug. They don't have the bug, unfortunately.
Darn.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the party.
Split
the party, or
and if you do, how do you split said party? Well, because I mean, it's probably the oldest, like, I don't want to say cliche, but it's the oldest like catchphrase in D&D. Don't split the party, right? And for a new DM, don't split the party. When I was a new DM, I played a game, a quick little one shot for some friends, and immediately they were all new too. Immediately they were all like, "Well, I don't want to go there. I go over here." And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, fuck that too." So I go over there, and I'm like, "No." And then like 3 others just went in 3 different positions. I was like, "I think the game's over, guys. I think
there's no longer a party. It's just 5 people playing D&D individually."
Because that's one of the things too you have to sort of explain to new players is like, you guys are a party. You're a group, right? You're a team. You work together. Like, there are times you can split the party, right? But ideally, ingrained in your soul should be like, we go together or we don't go at all. But having said that, splitting the party. What are your thoughts on splitting the party, James? As a player,
love it, especially in big groups. What I think splitting the party really does is it puts. So we have a party of 6. Say you have 6 players.
I think 6 is like the perfect number of players.
Well, I think for an RP heavy campaign, 6 is great. I think if you're playing like a dungeon crawler, I personally like a party of 3. No. That's just me.
Well, because it can be like 45 minutes. Like in a round of combat, if like you have like 3 spellcasters, it can be like 45 minutes before like it comes back around to you. That's
per
why
spellcaster.
Hourglass. Yeah, per spellcaster. That's why I read a cool thing in that 1 second. 1 second. I'm stealing. Reverse Uno. No, just today, on the D&D subreddit, I read a neat thing because we have fucked around with hourglasses, right? Mm-hmm. What this DM did was he gave the players the hourglass, and like they had their order up, and posted, and when their turn was over, if they weren't done when the thing like ran out, like their turn was over, and then they gave it to the next player. So it wasn't sort of you being the DM being like, well, fucking hurry up. It was like they were part of it. Like there's something about like physically manipulating something that makes you feel ownership over it, right? So you're like, okay, it's my time. I have to go, instead of someone else being like, and go. It also feels like,
a DM rolling. If a DM rolled all your attacks, nothing would change, right? Because assuming that a D20 is a random D20, right? One person could technically roll all the dice, and it shouldn't technically change anything.
Exactly. But it would change everything.
Oh, yeah.
What is it about like, no, I rolled it. I rolled it.
Well, it gives you a sense of control, right? You're like, oh, I'm kind of.
It does. It does. But Bobby, have you ever played on Roll20?
Yeah.
Have you ever just like clicked the roll thing? Did it feel different? Because now all you're doing is clicking a thing. But if I were to click it, it would feel even worse. It's weird. It's fucking weird, but it's true.
Maybe
and as a player too, I'd be like, "You're not fucking rolling my dice. Fuck you."
My DM brain, I don't. I like rolling the least amount of dice possible. I as a player and
as a player or as a DM.
As a DM, I like both. I like rolling as few dice as possible.
Really?
Just because I think it adds more fun to the game. In other ways, I think dice can sometimes stifle creativity.
I think that's true. That's true.
But that's a whole different subject. We're talking about splitting the party right now.
You're getting better at it, but you're not the best. Right before we get back to that, though, a good example of like not well. Come on, man. This is office hours. This isn't lesson plan hours. All right. One of the ways to not have as many roles is I've had players be like, okay, I want to convince the NPC not to do this. And then they're like, I roll. I'm like, don't roll. The NPC's right here. Convince me. Right. And then they're like, no, but it's like, just fucking talk, baby. Convince me. And like, it can backfire. Like you have to know your players, but it's a good way, especially sometimes for the player who doesn't like to talk, to kind of like get them in the mood, especially if the NPC isn't very like intense. If they're just sort of like a laid back farmer, they're like, oh, I threw that pumpkin at you before. Did you like it? Right. And they're like, yeah. Like, well, there's more where that came from. And it's like, are you
in
pumpkins?
Basement.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But like all of a sudden,
another pumpkin.
Now you've got people that aren't talking, or if someone is a talker like me, I can't shut up. Now it's like, well, how good are you? You know what I mean? Like, can you actually convince me?
The DMG actually has a really great thing on that about like how like the DC to persuade someone is varied depending on if they feel animosity towards you or they like you or they're neutral. And you as a player, it's kind of a great middle ground because charisma is always one of those things where it's like, well, some people are like, no, I just want to roll a persuasion check. I don't want to talk it out, which is totally fine. But you have the option now of being like, well, I made a pretty good case. And so the DC has now dropped pretty far. And that doesn't mean it's going to be successful every time.
Right.
But,
No. I agree. I agree. Like a combo of the two can feel very rewarding too, because you're like, all right, yeah. I think he's on our side now, guys. I think he's on our side. Natural one. Fuck.
Like you're saying, somebody who's not a talker, when the party is split, there's less. There's now.
You see? Wait.
Now, less people.
Those are the segues we come here for. All right.
And now
are the
when
segues.
this party's split, you don't have, especially in a group of like 6, you are now down to 3, assuming it's 3 and 3. So you now hold a third of the responsibility of this
you
party.
have to fill in. You have to do those roles that maybe are in the other party.
So if Cullen's in the other party, you know that there's a good chance that you're going to have to hold up. And I think what's fun about that is people can take on roles or take on more of a role when the party's split so that you're not just so reliant. I mean, usually if you have 6 people, what the 6 people represents is like a little bit of a safety net socially and magically or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And you take that away and it puts people in a new thing. And also when parties are split, you get different groupings of people. So you have 6
which
players
is my
again.
favorite, which is like, if the party is getting split as a DM, I always try and make, if possible, make it so it's like, it's a new combo, right? Just be like, if there's like an NPC with them, I'll be like, no, I want you with me. We're coming, right? And they're like, but I don't want to. Well, we can't get in without you, bud. You got that something. And it's like, where are we going? But you know what I mean? If you can make a new combo, James, you're absolutely right. Like that, it forces people into new roles too, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so much fun. It's so much fun. And then you just get to fuck with them and they can't because the talker's long gone. with the NPC going somewhere.
And the talker's just there, and it's also fun to see the person who talks a bunch at the table just being like, I can talk to him. Should I come back? I'm gonna look over the edge and see if they're. Are they? How are they doing?
Yeah, that's my favorite.
You can't
that's
see
my
them
favorite.
at all. Nothing.
Especially,
not at all. In fact, there's
or when the players
the
at the table turn to the other players and like, you're not there. It's always hilarious.
Can we make up a quick topic in the middle of this?
No, we can't, Bobby. I've stayed completely on track the whole
conversation. All right.
I mean, you have an awesome flashlight. Do you want to show that flashlight off before we move on, or?
Not this week.
I shouldn't have started.
This week. No, what were you saying, Baba?
Tune in next week for that. Anyways, sorry. So Graffiti was talking about the spotlight.
He said
hogger,
flash,
like
guys. He said flash. Okay, just to be clear.
Flashlight.
He said flash.
Wow, it sounds like you say flashlight every time.
Every time.
Flash. But yeah, the spotlight hogger or the scene stealer. Like, how do you deal with them as a DM? If someone keeps going off, they're like, I'm gonna go off and just talk to people for a while.
Yeah.
You did that last session, so
that's one of the hardest things as a DM, I think.
Yeah.
Ideally, that's a session 0 thing, but sometimes it crops up, especially with a new group, because in session 0, you talk to like, hey guys, we really want to, at my table, we really want to emphasize spotlight sharing, right? Ideally, what I as a player like to try and do is be like, how can I make other people shine? And inevitably you'll have a chance to shine as well, right? But if everyone's thinking that way, you're going to have the best time, I think. But every once in a while you get someone who's like, and I mean, I think it's logical that people end up playing D&D and being like, I want to be the center of attention, maybe, because in their real life they probably don't feel because that's what D&D can give you. It can give you that power that we don't have at all, the majority of us, in real life, at all. Like, I can't even go to the bank and get someone to talk to me sometimes. You know what I mean? And so you're like, no, I have a card. And they're like, sir, you have to leave. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess. But like, it gives you that power. And sometimes that can go to people's heads, right? And all of a sudden, and they don't even realize they're doing it. I don't think it's ever really malicious. But all of a sudden, it's like, they've always got a thing for that, for whatever the situation is, and boom, they're there. And dealing with that, James, what's your go-to?
I mean, I think I just need to. I luckily haven't had that as a problem at my tables. But I feel like if that was a problem, I would just talk to that person privately.
Out of game. Yeah.
Totally privately. I would never say anything in front of other players or anything like that. And I would just be like, hey, I just want you to know, like I've noticed. Yeah. And not, don't put it on the other players.
Don't make it about them. You don't make it about the other players. You make it about yourself, right? Hey, I would be like, hey, thinking,
you do a really great job. Like, say they are somebody who always has a thing. I'm like,
well, that's
is
the
there
problem.
a way you can integrate other players into your plans, pull them with you? You are someone who's great. Yeah. And I think like you don't want to lose that, because if you tell somebody, hey, you talk too much at the table,
you can't say
that.
Like,
I'm so sorry. Then
they're like, oh fuck, anymore. Yeah, I guess I just won't talk, because usually if someone is talking all the time, they're probably doing a good job. You know what I mean? Like, if the whole rest of the table hasn't been like, you need to shut up, you have gotten us killed 9 times. 9 times, right? Usually they're pretty good at it. If they feel confident, they're in their wheelhouse. It's tough to be like, hey, stop doing what you're good at. But I think, like what you said, one, on the DL, away from the table, right? Just a one-on-one, and make it about like, yo, can you use your skills to help drag the others in more? Like, make them they're your agent almost, that, to help bring other things in, because you don't want to stifle someone who's got fun ideas, who has like a really fun character that's like, ooh, does my character have something for this? And it's like, we woke up. Like, what do you have for waking up, right? But no, they've got it. It's like, drag someone else in. James, I think you're absolutely right. Like, that's the thing is you make them utilize their skills to help bring others into that sort of their rigmarole, their schemes, their whatever it is, right? But not at the table. God, no, not at the table. That is not a thing.
I mean, that's just one of the things.
It feels like an intervention then, and that's not fun. And
I feel like anytime you sow discontent between players is not a good thing. So even when players will bring up, 2 tables ago, this feels like a lifetime ago, but I had one player who had a lot of problems with another player. And I always brought these things up. And granted, the other player, like the same thing, didn't mean to be malicious, didn't mean to be annoying, was just having fun in the way that they have fun. And I would bring these things up, but I'd be like, I've noticed, it's never. So I think be careful too as a DM bringing up things with players. Don't want to ever say like, this player seems to have a problem with you.
Don't be Jerry Springer. Whatever you do, do not be Jerry Springer.
All right.
I mean, because half of. Well, no, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if you split the party and you put that person with somebody.
Right, that's what we were talking about.
If you put that person with somebody, it could be like a fun, good way to just get them to like find their whatever their teamwork.
Because
I
feel like I have to go wash my hands now.
But really,
hand sanitizer.
That could be an amazing bonding moment for characters if like one character has a secret or some kind of like weird scheme they want to do.
Secret. I've been
let's say Cornelia wanted to go steal something, right? And then like kind of like
Cornelia's
talk
in our
to Tellwise about it a lot. Yeah. Sorry. The rogue talked to the ranger about a scheme they have, and kind of they become their confidant, and they go on this little like adventure together. That's fun. That's like 2 players together instead of one player just doing their own thing. So I think that could be great for those characters to bond with, because of that.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk logistics though, because how do you split the party effectively? And for me, my go-to is look for the beats. You always have to look for the small beats, the slight lulls, and then just play table tennis, right? So like if you've got 2 parties, you're looking for that downbeat where it's like, okay, and they bought the thing. Boom, back to the other party. What are you doing? Right? And then it really becomes juggling. And that's where it really gets hard too. Because like the more complex you're making both scenes, the more difficult it is. But the more you can jump back and forth, the better. And I think this is what we came up against in James's game last week, right? We weren't table tennising enough. And you see how I said we're inclusive. We all share the blame.
One. Let me set up the setting.
Tell the people.
I did not expect for the party to split. That was a big surprise to me as a DM.
And if it catches you off guard, it can be tough.
Well, I had expected you guys to get off the boat inside this new town. They had reached the new town, and I was going to let you guys just play around in the town. I figured you guys could explore, but
you hear that,
behold,
friend? Speaking of railroading, he was going to let us. See that? See the language?
There was a good 30 minutes of me just kind of like dictating what was happening. And then you guys got in, and when you guys split, I kind of was thinking, man, there's really nothing for the other side to do. I mean, they can chit chat, but like as far as like getting the story going, and we've moved to a shorter format, so in my head there was multiple things going on.
Big picture. A part of the group went into the town, and part of the group stayed on the ship. Right?
Yes.
And you didn't have anything prepared for the ship because you were like, well, of course everyone's going to go in town, right?
Well, and so my options were, and when I try and split the party, I generally try and speed up the game whenever the party's split up. This is just a rule for me, just because it's like, whenever people aren't involved, the longer they're not involved, the more they start like pulling out this and then texting.
And then they aren't even present. Yeah, that's why I'm like, you have to table tennis it. You have to.
One of the things I do with splitting the parties, I try and speed it up. So what I did was, instead of letting you guys just explore town, I was like, this NPC is going to show you everything about town, and then we're going to have this event.
And then
that
you
I had
started
planned,
railroading.
And then I'm going to
you solved it by railroading.
Exactly, and it was the wrong thing to do. I should have just made.
Having
two
said
sessions.
that,
It could have been slower.
As a railroaded session, it was still very fun and entertaining. So like,
yeah,
you railroad good, boy.
It was technically railroading, but I don't think that railroading is always necessarily bad. I think it's kind of an opinion-based thing where it's like some might think it's bad, some might think it's okay. I think what you did was okay. It wasn't horrible. Where I was like, it was truth.
I agree. Totally agree.
Making the game feel boring. It was like I thought it was pretty good, but you could maybe do it in a more organic way, I guess. But yeah,
if there was a moment where the party was chilling and doing something goofy or fun, just really, really, instead of it being like go, 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 I would have felt like, if I cut back to you guys, the tones will match. Because it kind of felt like, on one hand, there were demons going crazy, threatening the party, doing stuff on the beach, and then you cut to it, it's like crickets.
See, here's the thing, though. I think that can be a lot of fun. Because it is like, I always think about watching a movie or watching a TV show. If like A story is literally demons and B story is just a couple of guys just having some brews on the porch, like that's kind of hilarious,
dude, that's hilarious,
but also compelling because you're like they don't even know that everyone's dying right now. Right?
No.
So like
it's really funny. Yeah,
that juxtaposition can actually be compelling because it can almost heighten it, because all of a sudden you've got this really tense situation. Everyone there in that part of the group is freaking the whole time, especially if you've got a good beat that you came off on, like the bad guy raises his axe, and so we're back on the ship. And they're like, no, right? And then you're like, and just, the waves lap against the side of the ship and you hear la, 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 and the crabs are singing about just kissing girls, and I don't know, but what are you guys talking about? Right? Like that can be fun. That can be fun. But I think what happened to you, James, was I don't think you had anything in your mind to help set the scene back on the ship. Right?
I left them a little bit like, it was very like, you guys left the ship. What I should have done is when they were leaving the ship, be like, Bobby or Reed, what are you guys doing? Like, what are you guys going to do? Set that scene, then jump over. Then I have something to cut back to. And it can
like ruminate in your brain. Yeah. And that gives you
that's a good
time.
Idea. That's a good idea. Yeah.
That's very
that was
smart. Just touch home base real quick.
In the last game.
And that's smart. That's super smart. I dig that.
But I think as a DM, don't be. I think you should allow yourself to like once in a while just trust and kind of like fall on the players once in a while. Like trust they're going to be able to carry the weight a little bit. You don't have to like hold their hand. But I do think that like setting up a scene and being like, what do you guys do before we leave? What are you guys going to do? Could help definitely for sure. That's a good idea.
Oh, for sure.
Well,
I think
the other thing,
and you're going to go with one group, I think give the other group like.
Yeah,
generally like a 30-second spiel and then move on with one.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
But the other thing too is like the DM, like the way I like to think about it is like the DM is creating the scene and the players are playing in it, right? So as the DM, like back on the ship, I think that the main stumbling block was you didn't create a scene for them to inhabit. And then they felt they needed to create a bit of a scene, right? So we had talked earlier, because we're always talking shop, about like maybe having just someone come up and be like, hey, the main NPC, whatever her fucking name was, I still can't remember it.
Julissa,
just have someone who like shows up with a couple buckets of tar and some caulk and is like, so I'm supposed to be, caulking the ship. Julissa said you guys would help, right? And then now all of a sudden they're like, no. But then he starts to get to work, and then at least they have something like, do we help him or do we just ignore him? And here's the thing, even if they ignore him, Now you've got a handle on that scene. There's an expectation that there should at least be helping. And if they're like, yeah, we just go to the other side of the ship, and you just have every once in a while you can have the guy like peek up like, you guys gonna help? Or he just like, he walks over and he's like, you really doing this to me? And now if they want to talk, if they want to just hash something out, the world is still happening around them instead of just being on an empty ship, right? Mm-hmm. There's always something going on. And that helps the players too, because as long as they have something to bounce, like I like to think of it as it's sort of like you're wandering around with your eyes shut. If you're in just like the middle of an empty field, like you are lost. But as long as there's just a few things in the space that you can be like, okay, this is over here, that's over there. As long as there's some characters, there's some motion, there's, another ship pulls in next to you and you see some stuff happening. All of a sudden you're still set in the scene. Mentally, you're engaged with sort of what the world is doing so that you can then kind of just be yourself, be your character, and allow that to happen around you. Even if it is like, we just, like you guys did, play dice, right? But at least now you're playing dice while another ship is pulling in, and the one guy is just mumbling about how no one fucking helps him anytime he has to like recaulk the ship, right? And you've set a scene, and now any conversation that you have, any sort of concerns that are shared, it just feels like now it's in a novel instead of just on a blank stage, right?
Yeah, and that's really great advice, because not all players want to set a scene. So to be able to have a scene around you happening in a living world,
right,
allows you to like just like live in it, and you're just like, okay, just have a conversation right here in the scene. And
because that's not really the player's responsibility, right?
It's not. Yeah,
and that's sort of the DM's responsibility to be building the world for you, setting that stage. And I'm not knocking you, James. It's fucking tough, especially when they do it when you're not prepared, right? They're like, yeah, we'll go over here. And sometimes I'll just be like, you can hear me like audibly gulp, where I'm like, oh God.
Tangent brings up a really cool idea. I would say that the GM needs to prepare for splitting the party and possibly have NPCs the other players can take over.
Oh, interesting. That's always fun. I don't tend to do that. But that can be a lot of fun, because now all of a sudden, exactly, and then you can kind of leave the other guys, and it gives them some time. It's fun to just hop into another character every once in a while. Mm-hmm. Like I did a session in my last campaign where you guys had a home base. You had a really shitty Castle Grayskull. Let's be serious. And you had you kept adopting NPCs and just being like, yeah, you can move in, you can live there. You had like 5 or 6 characters like that you knew well living there that you were never there. So like it was basically like they were living rent free, had run of the place or whatever. For a whole session, what I did is I had all of the players play one of those characters.
Oh my God.
Because they hadn't checked back in with the house in forever, other than like through Ascending Stone.
That's amazing.
And so like I wanted to progress the action there a bit. So all of the players hopped into their bodies and had a somewhat non-consequential evening. Like one of the NPCs did die. So not the most non-consequential, but it was a fun way to sort of take a break from the main campaign and jump into someone else's body. And jumping into an NPC that's going along with the group can be a lot of fun too. Like that's actually a genius idea.
Yeah,
you just have to be a generous DM, because me, I'm like, no, those NPCs are mine, baby. They're mine. You just have to go with the flow.
Let go of the reins on that one. But yeah, that's a really interesting idea for sure.
I like it. I like it a lot.
I mean, you've actually had you've set scenes before, and I actually had fun with this, and I find it hard to do online, and I've had times where I wanted to do it.
Playing online is so hard.
For instance, you walk up and you're like, hey, you walk into this room and there's men and women and people, and they're all kind of sitting at seats, and you hear a little bell and they get up and they move down a seat and then they sit back down and they're just talking with each other. And and then you're like, well, are they speed dating? And you're like, yeah, and someone waves you over, and there's an empty seat, and you sit down, and hey, we'll say we'll have Day. Day's character comes and sits down, and she's like, okay, what am I doing? And I'm like, there's a nice young, well-groomed gentleman across the table. Bobby, let me. What does he sound like?
Yeah. That's fun. That's
and
fun.
then now you have like speed dating, and she gets up, she sits down, and I'm like, all right, Kate, what does this next person sound like? Right?
Yeah. That can be a lot of fun too. I mean, any way to just get the players at the table or on the screen, like in the scene, is good in my opinion. Especially if it's something not truly consequential. You're speed dating, which was apparently, I found out on Jeopardy last night, was invented by a rabbi in like 1995 or something like that. Interesting. These are the things. These are the things you learn. Yeah. No. That's smart though. Anything you can do, to just help people flavor scenes is great.
And so, what are your guys' opinions? Should you try and split the party as least as possible? I think it's a device that can be used to great effect, but used sparingly. I don't think you should split the party very often.
I think I probably split the party as a DM more often than most people. But I think it's because I tend to run games, like you were saying earlier, James, where there's like 9 narratives going on. And if they want to feel like they can get anything done, they have to. They're like, okay, we'll go tackle this and you tackle that. And right, it's like, I think I do that more often than I think the average DM does. I also kind of enjoy the headache, the literal actual headache that I get. Like when I finished like DMing a game that we've had like heavy party splitting, like I'll actually get just like, fuck, my head hurts. Like I'll go lay down on the couch after and just be like, ow. That was not easy, but it feels good. It's like a workout, like after a workout where you're like, my whole body hurts. My whole body hurts. Well, but you're like proud of yourself, proud of those units.
It's like there's an idea in improv called working at the top of your intellect. And I think for a DM, it's this very similar thing where you kind of go into this mode where you're like literally working at your maximum capacity.
Yeah, the like flow space, flow state or whatever.
Exactly. Your brain is just going. And so you are just going and going and going. And it's not till you stop or you have a little break that you realize, shit, like,
ow,
I have been going.
Yeah. I think part of that is what forever DMs like myself pretty much, other than in your campaign, James, like I think that's why we are forever DMs. Cause like, I haven't had a demanding job that actually took like, and I don't want to say I'm like super smart because I'm not, I'm a fucking moron. But like having said that, I'm not sure I've ever had a job that really required more than like 50% of my attention or intellect. Like, and I know everyone at home is like, hey, bud, maybe get a better job. And I'm like, I'm trying. Okay. I'm trying. But you know what I mean? So like there are very few spaces where you get to be like, oh, fuck. Okay. Go. Think as hard as you can. Think as fast as you can.
I mean, yeah. I think that's what's like, so I think
that's what's addicting,
alluring
almost.
About like video games, right? Like
sure.
I play a lot of video games that are like, you have like half a second to react to stuff over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And you have to stay on your toes for 25
minutes. And you're just honing that. You're just in
like,
that, right?
Go. And then you win. It feels so good, but
yeah, I never win.
So similar.
I never win. I always lose, and then I'm like, well, this fucking sucks. I never got good enough to actually get to the prize.
Colin, I feel like you were just like, I don't care.
I don't.
Everyone's like, what the hell, Colin? We're all losing because of you. And you're like, well, then don't play with me.
Yeah, fucking, you guys want to play D&D? Huh?
Exactly. No, I mean, that's good. So I think, no. So Bobby, how do you feel about splitting the party?
Yeah, as a player, how does it, what does it do to your jumblies?
Well, I think we've had a lot of good ideas here from a DM's perspective. I was going to ask, like, because this example, for instance, like where we're like, they were in town and we were on the boat. I think a big word that Colin said was consequential. Like, it's important to remember, like, you don't have to always ping pong back and forth a lot if the other scene isn't that consequential. Like, we're just hanging out on the boat. It's not that big of a deal. It's not life or death. If you are in a battle and you're on multiple stages of the battle and like one's over here, one's over there, then definitely be ping ponging a lot or like an important mission or whatever. But like, what do you guys think? I don't think like that counts as like a consequential thing where you have to like go back and forth between the boat and the party.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Like, it feels like, especially in a gritty campaign like James is playing, where like it feels like a lot is at stake all the time. I can understand the notion that like, no. They're doing the important stuff. Let's just focus on them. But I feel like personally, if you have really important stuff going on, it's fun to have not important stuff still happening and the other things. So like, I'm a huge proponent of just fucking surprise NPCs. And by that, I mean, I just surprise myself. And I'll just be like, yeah, and then a guy rolls up and, and I'm like, wow, what is he like? And he just does this and just pulling shit out of my ass. And all of a sudden just like working up like some ridiculous scene. Just like just like if you two are on the boat and just have like a guy who's like, I'll sell you nails. I've got nails. And he's like, you're like, we don't need nails. He's like, I'm coming up. Permission to come aboard. Thank you. And all of a sudden he's like, watch this. And he starts nailing nails into your ship. And you're like, stop. Right. And all of a sudden you have to like, now you're handling a guy. Right. And it's like, why the fuck are we even doing this? And you're looking at me like, why are you doing this to us? And I'm like, isn't this fun?
No, that's
and you're like,
fun.
No, it's not fun. Stop breaking our ship. Right. And another guy comes up. Hey, did I hear some hammering? I've got a nail puller. Let me. And you all of a sudden it's like, are these guys a duo? Are they like, and all
that's fantastic. But I was saying more of like the time split, I think, between the two groups should be like, if this group isn't that important, it's like 20-80, right?
I don't know.
But if it's like both important, it's like 50-50.
Well, I would say the reason it's important to split is because every person at the table is equally as important.
Right? Yeah, because the story comes
why
second.
I would try and give everyone equal time.
Yeah,
I didn't do that.
Yeah. Well, you're a bad DM.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing too. I felt like even though the two of you weren't on the walkabout the city,
James feels so bad about this.
Oh, he feels so torn up.
The same reason you guys weren't on the walkabout the city, but you guys were
the railroad.
You guys weren't on the rail trail. You guys weren't on the little train, the little kiddie train where they're like, you guys weren't on that, but you guys were at the table. So it's like you guys were still kind of going through the town with everybody at the same time. So in my head, I didn't really consider that. I didn't consider that
setting up
to
a
be
whole
like
story for us with that. It's fine. It's not that big of a deal.
No. What I'm saying though is like I think that as like
James's defense
one group
is
or the other's team.
James's defense is I was railroading all of you, so really no one played. So don't feel bad about not playing.
Exactly. No. I mean, that's exactly what it was. You guys were all kind of on that railroad train together.
Yeah, we're all watching it together.
There wasn't really much for anyone to do.
No,
it wasn't until you guys got to like a guy and you started haggling for magic items that I was like, okay, because that's when that's the time
that's when you popped back. Yeah,
that's when I popped back.
But
so in my mind, I was like,
here's what I would say though, James, is like I think again you did a great job though, because you were railroading us. But while you were doing it, you were setting up you're giving us a lot of different pieces of the puzzle, and you're like, okay, this guy has a picture of this guy has a map, this guy has, like you're kind of giving us things to do.
Yeah, he was setting up dominoes,
shop to shop, and do those things. So I thought you did a good job of like adding that in there as well.
Yeah, it was like being on a roller coaster that we were strapped into and had no choice of getting off.
But that you had all agreed to go to.
yeah, there you go. And that's what it's about. Hashtag consent. Oh man.
Yeah. Good times.
No, it was still fun. But that's the thing is like at the end of every session, if you haven't learned something as a DM, you didn't have a good session. That's my like personal mantra. If you don't have a headache and you didn't learn something, it wasn't a good session.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know. There's always
and the
next
benefits
session,
too.
right?
I mean, I feel like if you split the party and it doesn't work out, the next session, especially if you have forgiving people, just do better and you can make up for it the next time.
Exactly. If people are still coming back to your table, you're doing a good job, and just keep at it.
Or no one else wants to DM.
Yeah, that's probably it. They want to play, but they do not want to DM.
They want to play so bad. They'll take a bad DM over DMing themselves.
Dude, that is so true. I feel like that's so true. Oh man. So think about that, guys. They're stuck with you. Don't worry about it. Don't sweat it.
Yeah. You're in demand. If you're willing to run a table, you're in demand.
Oh, dude, it's honest to God, that's true though. Like I can't count the number of times that in passing I've mentioned like, oh yeah, I DM a game and blah blah blah. Like within 2 minutes, I'm talking 120 seconds. They'll be like, so you got any room at that table? Huh? That makes this table. I can bring a chair. I got a sweet paladin. And I'm like, ooh, sorry, you had me up until paladin.
I was at a party last night. We went to a group of friends, a bunch of like socialite types. Ooh, and I was like, I was way out of my element, right? These are people who were like, who do like HGTV shows and do like reality shows and stuff like that. Like some people who are like in LA.
I love that James's cool opinion stuff of himself like puts him way below the people that are on HGTV. He's like, those stars on HGTV.
No, but just people.
I know what you mean. I know
who are like, they're
that have jobs and careers and sources of income and perhaps a mortgage or a dog or two, a spouse or a lot of house dogs with a.
There were a lot of dogs
with a picket fence
at this. And people were like, "What do you do?" And I was like, "Well, I run a Dungeons and Dragons Twitch stream." And I love it so much that I don't care. I mean, I don't care what they think of me.
Judge me.
But I can acknowledge that
judge away.
If we were to take 100 people and be like, who's cooler? I would probably lose.
Yeah.
And then, people are like, oh, that's cool. And then slowly.
Does it pay a lot?
One by one. 3 of them were like, I dabble a little bit. You got any
room in that table?
They're like, when do you stream? I'll check it out. Maybe I can join you guys sometime. And I'm like,
I feel like it's the closest being a DM with a constant game going on is the closest I personally will ever feel to being a hot girl. Just being like in demand. People just want me for my table, and I'm okay with that.
I've worked at like several different places, and like wherever I go, and someone like hears that I play D&D, like in a different department from me, they're just like, "Hey, so my name's Todd, by the way. I heard you play D&D. Do you have
you got a table?"
Yeah, Gethron says a hot girl or a cult leader.
Yes, both very much so. Both in demand,
salvation.
Baby. Oh man, that'd be great. God. Wouldn't that be awesome? You get a bunch of rich people at your table and you're like, you can level up if I get a BMW. Like, what? Yeah, it's right here in the PHB.
Oh my God, that's so crazy. Oh my God. Like, so like the state of video games. Okay, we're done with splitting the party. I'm taking this card off. But when
he's starting to wrap it up. We're starting to wrap it up, folks. I swear.
Video games have started going the way of mobile. Mobile gaming is all about like pay to win. If you pay $1, you can X, or you give me $10. So like video games have now become like you can pay thousands of dollars.
Oh, didn't that happen in Elden Ring or something like that?
Not Elden Ring, but
there was a game where it was like literally it was $100,000.
Diablo Immortal.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of them though. It's not just one.
It's like happening.
Not like a singular thing. That's been happening, right? Like games where it's like. You could have one group and you fight another clan or something like that, and it's like, oh, the clan's gonna attack you in the middle of the night. Oh, well, I just pay $20 a night, and it puts up a wall and they can't attack me while I'm not on.
What?
Yeah, stuff like that.
Are you serious?
But I know people who have paid.
I didn't know it went that far.
But there's a guy in the game I played, Lost Ark, is a perfect example of a game that like, and it's not as bad as some of the others, but it still can get really bad. And so this one group is like what is it? There's like a new thing where they put online, they're like, ha ha ha, we in a month have spent your yearly salary.
That's not funny.
And I was like, what? And I looked and it was like something like $75,000 they've spent in this game as a group. And it's wild because it's like
that's much more than my yearly salary.
Well, it's weird. It's weird because it's like you have one in one hand, they're the reason the game is free for me.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I don't like it though. Everything's going in that direction. So like,
yeah.
I wonder at what point you'll get to a Dungeons and Dragons.
Have we reached peak?
Where it's like
peak
you can
capitalism?
literally pay for experience.
Yeah. No, it's quite literally gold for XP.
Yeah. Microtransactions D&D.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh god. No. But that's sort of the beauty of like it. That's what I love about it. That it is like very analog. And it like you can someone could be like, oh, Willer just released like the pay to win module, and I can be like, oh, that doesn't exist in my world. Get the fuck out of here. Actually, let me read it first. Yeah, now get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Which is nice. Which is good. Oh god, yeah, that's rough though. Well, we'll talk about that more in the future. In the future, pay to win D&D.
Pay to win D&D.
Can we make it a possibility?
If we could. Like if we created that, it would be
God,
over.
I'd get so much money.
It would be over. We would be rich.
Oh, God, it'd be so good. We'd be on that train. I will take it full circle, boys. We'd be on that train.
We would be like the equivalent of like the CEOs of like social media companies that don't allow their kids to have cell phones.
Yeah. I'd be like, no, you're not allowed to play it. No. It's what Daddy does, and it's dirty. You won't play it. As long as I live in this mansion with this train that parks outside.
Wow.
All right.
With that, I think we're going to log off and give you the rest of your Friday. Please, everybody, I hope you had fun. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Thanks for visiting the office.
Some stuff. Yeah, thanks for coming to the office.
Hey guys, it's Bobby from the Cup. If you enjoy DM Office Hours, check out our D&D campaign. It's on every Monday at 7 p.m. on twitch.tv/MinusOneCHA. Or just watch DM Office Hours every Friday at 6 p.m. Take care. I'll just hang out here.